The knock on the door was soft, almost hesitant, like the person on the other side wasn't sure they belonged there. Inside the small, worn-down house, a tired father paused mid-step. It was late evening. He wasn't expecting anyone. Bills were stacked on the table, the fridge hummed quietly, and his two kids were asleep in the next room. Life had been heavy lately, heavier than he could admit out loud. He opened the door slowly, and standing there was a man who looked completely out of place. A tailored suit, polished shoes, a car parked outside that probably cost more than the house itself, and what happened next would change both of their lives forever. Before we dive into this powerful story, make sure you subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this remind us how much kindness matters. You're watching Kindness Story Hub, where every story comes straight from the heart. David Miller had never imagined his life would look like this. At 38, he had once been full of plans, dreams of a stable job, a happy home, and giving his children everything he never had. But life doesn't always follow the script we write. After losing his job at a small manufacturing company, things spiraled quickly. Savings ran out. Bills piled up. The stress of it all had taken a toll on his marriage, and eventually, his wife left, unable to carry the weight any longer, and now it was just David and his two kids, Lily, age 9, and Marcus, age 6. Every day, David woke up before sunrise, took odd jobs when he could find them, and stretched every dollar as far as it would go. Some nights, he skipped meals just to make sure his kids had enough, but despite everything, he had one rule in his home: kindness always comes first. Even when they had little, David taught his kids to share. If they saw someone struggling more than them, they helped, no questions asked. Kindness doesn't cost anything, he would say. But it can mean everything. Across the city, in a world that felt galaxies away, lived Jonathan Reed, a billionaire CEO known for his sharp business instincts and relentless drive. Jonathan had built a global company from the ground up. His name was in magazines. His schedule was packed with meetings, deals, and high-stakes decisions, but something had been bothering him lately. Despite all his success, something felt empty. One evening, while reviewing a report from one of his company's smaller community programs, a story caught his eye. It was a short note written by a volunteer local father, unemployed, raising two kids alone. Despite financial hardship, continues to help neighbors and share what little he has. Jonathan paused. He read the line again, then again. Something about it stayed with him. In a world where people chased more and more, here was someone giving, even when he had almost nothing. Curious, Jonathan asked his assistant to find out more. A few days later, he had an address, and that's how he ended up standing in front of David Miller's door. "Can I help you?" David asked cautiously. Jonathan gave a small, polite smile. "Hi. I hope I'm not disturbing you. My name is Jonathan. I was hoping we could talk for a few minutes." David looked at him, confused. People like this didn't just show up at his door. "I don't think I know you," he said. "You don't," Jonathan admitted. "But I've heard about you." That made David even more uneasy. "Heard what?" Jonathan hesitated for a moment, then spoke honestly. "I heard that you've been going through a tough time, but you still help others. I wanted to see that for myself." David blinked, unsure how to respond. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then David sighed and stepped aside. "It's not much, but you can come in." Jonathan walked into the small house, taking in every detail. The furniture was old but clean. The walls had drawings taped to them, crayon sketches of stick figures holding hands, smiling under bright yellow suns. There was warmth here. "Real warmth. Sorry for the mess," David said, clearing a few papers off the table. "It's not a mess," Jonathan replied quietly. He noticed the stack of bills, the nearly empty pantry, the patched-up shoes near the door, and yet, there was something else: peace. How did you hear about me? David asked. Jonathan sat down slowly. Through a community program my company supports. Someone mentioned you. David nodded slowly. People talk too much. Jonathan smiled faintly. Sometimes they talk about the right things. As they spoke, David shared his story, not dramatically, not for sympathy, just honestly. He talked about losing his job. About the nights he stayed up worrying. About how he tried to stay strong for his kids, but the truth is, David said, looking down at his hands, some days I feel like I'm failing them. Jonathan leaned forward slightly. Why? Because I can't give them everything they deserve. There was a pause, then Jonathan asked a question that surprised even himself. What do you think they deserve? David didn't hesitate. Love. Safety. And a reason to believe things will get better. Jonathan sat back, silent. Those weren't the answers he expected. Just then, a small voice came from the hallway. Dad? Lily stood there, rubbing her eyes. David turned. Hey, sweetheart. Go back to bed. She noticed Jonathan and froze. It's okay, David said gently. This is a friend. Jonathan gave a small wave. Hi. Lily walked closer, holding something in her hands. Dad, I forgot, we made these today. She handed him a small paper bag. David smiled. Thank you. Jonathan watched as David opened it. Inside were 2 homemade sandwiches, for Mrs. Carter, Lily said. She said she didn't have dinner again. Jonathan frowned slightly. Who's Mrs. Carter? Our neighbor, David explained. She's elderly. Lives alone. Sometimes she forgets to eat, or doesn't have enough. And you're giving her your food? Jonathan asked, surprised. David shrugged. We always make a little extra. Jonathan looked at the kitchen. There wasn't much to spare. Something shifted in that moment. Jonathan felt it deeply. All the boardrooms, all the deals, all the numbers. It suddenly felt so small compared to the simple act of kindness. You don't have much, Jonathan said quietly. Why give it away? David looked at him, confused by the question. Because she needs it. It was that simple. No calculations. No conditions, just kindness. Jonathan stood up slowly. I think I've been looking at life the wrong way, he said. David raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I've spent years building something big, Jonathan continued. But I forgot something important along the way. And what's that? Jonathan looked around the room at the drawings, the sandwiches, the quiet strength of a man who refused to stop caring, that success doesn't mean anything if it doesn't help others. The next few days changed everything. Jonathan didn't just write a check and walk away. He came back again and again. He helped David find a stable job, not as charity, but as an opportunity. Something that respected his dignity and skills. He made sure the kids had what they needed for school. He expanded the community program that first led him there, turning it into something much bigger, something that reached hundreds of families, but more importantly, he changed himself. He started listening more, giving more, being present in ways he never had before, and every time someone asked him what inspired the shift, he would smile and say, a father who had nothing, and still gave everything. Months later, life looked different for David and his kids. There was more stability. Less worry, but one thing never changed. Every evening, they still made an extra sandwich just in case someone needed it. Kindness isn't about how much you have. It's about what you choose to do with what you have. A small act, a sandwich, a smile, a helping hand, can ripple outward in ways you may never fully see. One knock on a door brought 2 very different worlds together, and in that moment, Kindness became the bridge that changed them both. So tonight, tomorrow, whenever you can choose. Kindness, because you never know whose life you might change. Or how it might change yours.